hiding yourself in order to avoid rejection, it's still rejection. You're just doing it to yourself first. David Bowie showed up in a way that the world genuinely did not know what to do with. People were confused, then they were obsessed, then they were transformed. Frida Kahlo refused to edit herself into something more palatable, into something less unibrowy, into something less completely traumatized by her body. She painted her pain and she fully lived her unibrow, the strange, specific, unrepeatable you that showed up in this life with the exact combinations of gifts and wounds and flaws and graces and quirks and questions. And your weird is not standing between you and love. Your weird is the way. What if the thing you've been most embarrassed about, the part of you that feels too much, off from everyone else, weird, too specific, just wrong? What if that thing is actually your fastest path to God, to love, to the life you actually want? Stick with me because we're going there today. If you're here, you're meant to be here. I'm Jamie Roddy, and this is Staying Aligned, a movement for living consciously and staying aligned with God's love, with universal source, with infinite potential, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so today we're talking about authenticity. And I know this has been through the content ringer, and so it's completely diluted down right now to presence on coffee cups and LinkedIn posts. And everybody's talking about showing up authentically while carefully curating exactly which version of their authentic selves gets to show up. So let's just clear the table completely and start over, because authenticity is not a personality trait or a vibe. It's certainly not curated. It's actually a spiritual practice. And I mean that in the most serious, non-woo way I know how to say it. The daily, ongoing, sometimes genuinely uncomfortable practice of letting who you actually are be the thing that walks into the room, that is hard, and it's spiritual work, full stop. And today I want to make the case that you being your full, most wild, loudest, specific, weirdest, unrepeatable self is one of the fastest paths to universal love, to God, to whatever word you want to use for it that is bigger than you and also somehow is you. Most of us spend a significant portion of our lives making ourselves more palatable, more digestible. We figure out what the room wants, and then we give them that version of ourselves instead of, like the actual one. And here's what I want you to really sit with. Performing a version of yourself that's easier for other people to swallow is not kindness, nor is it humility. It's a form of spiritual shrinking, and it's costing you more than you know. Because here's the thing. You can't be loved for who you actually are if you never show up as who you actually are. This sounds obvious, but think about how many of us are genuinely starving for real connection while simultaneously hiding the real parts of ourselves. That's not a coincidence. This is like the whole problem. And this one's going to hit hard, y'all. But hiding yourself in order to avoid rejection, it's still rejection. You're just doing it to yourself first. You are beating everyone else to the punch. And the world doesn't need another version of someone else. It needs desperately the specific frequency that only you carry. There is a note that only you can hit. And when you spend your life trying to sound like someone more acceptable, that note never gets played. And we need all the notes. Let's talk about the weird parts. Let's talk about yours, mine, everybody else's, because I really do mean weird, and I love the weird ones. Your quirks, your contradictions, your specific flavor of strange. These are not bugs in the system. These are features. They are not the obstacle to love and connection. They're the actual doorway. The things that you've spent the most energy trying to sand down about yourself, those are very often the exact things that make someone else feel less alone the moment they finally see them. Your specific weirdness is somebody else's favorite flavor. Your willingness to be exactly what you are gives other people permission to do the same. We can all give each other permission to stop performing like something we're not, because we're the only ones that can sing our specific notes. Sameness is so forgettable. Specificity, that is magnetic. The people we can't stop thinking about, the ones who leave a mark, they were never the ones to blend in, and neither are you. I'm going to tell you something personal here because I think it matters. I was told that I was bossy from like forever. And I spend years being genuinely embarrassed by who I intrinsically am. I try to soften it, qualify it, like make myself smaller so that people wouldn't find me so much. I internalized it verily as a flaw for years, something to manage, something wrong with me, something to hide, something to tamp down, something to apologize for. I tried to be less directive, less opinionated, less whatever the word for that was that week. But it didn't work. It's shocking. I know. It did not work. And at some point, I just got tired. I got tired of apologizing for the thing that was clearly not going anywhere. So I stopped trying to fix it and I just started asking like a different question. What if this isn't a defect? What if this is just the thing? My note that I can sing that other people can't. So I leaned into it fully, doubled down on it like it was a superpower instead of a character flaw. And that so-called flaw, it's the exact reason staying aligned exists. The bossiness became a platform. The too much became a community. The thing I spent years hating about myself turned out to be the specific frequency that only I can carry. I couldn't have made that up. So when I tell you that being weird is not the obstacle, just remember it's your acceptance of your weird. That's your only obstacle. And history agrees, by the way. Look, it's not just personal, it's not just spiritual. Let's look at David Bowie. David Bowie showed up in a way that the world genuinely did not know what to do with. The androgyny, the alter egos, the absolute refusal to be pinned down to any one version of himself. People were confused. Then they were obsessed. Then I tear up when I think about David Bowie because then they were transformed. Because he gave permission just by existing so completely for other people to stop shrinking. That's beyond a music career. That is a spiritual act. All hail Saint David Bowie. Can we saint this man? He might already be sainted. Or not sainted. He's probably knighted, right? I'm not sure how it works, but I digress easily and often. Let's look at Coco Chanel. Good gracious, this woman gave women freedom everywhere. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the story. She looked at what women were expected to wear in like the early 1900s, corsets, the excess, all of it, and essentially said, that's going to be a no from me, dog. I'll be wearing pants. She didn't ask for permission. She wore what felt true, and in doing so, literally shaped how women moved through the world. Finally, women could breathe. She's credited with changing fashion, but she changed freedom for women. just by being her most weirdest, authentic self. Can you even imagine being a woman in the early 1900s and not like a cowgirl somewhat in society and going, no, I'm going to wear pants? What? What? They'll shun you. They'll hate you. They'll never come to your dress shops, etc. Didn't care. Gonna wear pants. And she changed the world for everybody by being her own kooky, authentic self. Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo painted her pain, her trauma, her beauty in a way that was so completely unfashionable at the time. The art world was not lining up for her unfiltered self-portraits. And now she is one of the most beloved artists and totally recognizable because she refused to edit herself into something more palatable, into something less unibrowy, into something less completely traumatized by her body. She painted her pain and she fully lived her unibrow. And now she is completely universally adored. Do you know how brave you have to be to do that? To make your mark on the world like that? This is what I get so worked up about it because it's just so near and dear to my heart. And I just think it's such an impactful way that you can actually make change is just by being yourself. Fred Rogers did that too, Mr. Rogers. And he was a soft-spoken man who just felt like he should talk to children as if they're whole people, not like with weird puppets and crazy chaos and spectacle. And every network executive told him that's not how you do it. He did it anyway. And he became someone an entire generation still cries about decades later. And what's stunning about this idea, to bring it back to staying aligned with God, universal love, is that almost every spiritual tradition on earth has been saying the same thing in its own language for thousands of years. All the sages who are aligned with God say this same thing. In Sufism, Rumi wrote about the soul's longing to return to its source. The idea is that your truest self is already connected to the divine. The separation you feel is not God moving away from you, it's you performing a version of yourself that doesn't actually exist, and then wondering why nothing feels real or aligned. In Kabbalah, every soul carries a unique spark called the nitzot, something only that specific soul can bring. And hiding it isn't modesty. I love telling people what to do, y'all. This is like my jam. And that sounds crazy, but I just decided to double down on it. And now we all help each other stay aligned with God. And even performing on this platform with you and engaging in stayingaligned.org, our community filled with meditations, resources, free guided journeys. There's courses in there and it's all free for a limited time. Check it out. That wouldn't exist if I didn't double down on this. What is your weird? What can you double down on? It's like everybody said the same thing. In Hinduism and Vedanta, there's Svadharma, your own unique path, your specific sacred purpose. And here's the part I love. Living someone else's dharma, even perfectly, is still considered a spiritual failure. You are not here to be a flawless version of someone else. There was a Christian mystic named Thomas Merton who wrote about the true self versus the false self as basically the spiritual central struggle of human life. The false self is the persona built for approval. And his whole point was that union with God, real union, only happens through the true self. Even Carl Jung, in the secular version of all this, spent his entire career mapping out what he called individuation, becoming the fullest, most integrated version of yourself. The parts of you that you buried because they felt unacceptable, he said, they don't disappear when you hide them. They just run your life from the underground. Every single tradition, every lineage, every wise person who has ever pointed toward love or God or the divine has ultimately pointed inward first to authenticity. It's just integrity of self, being true to who you are. You cannot be someone else and not be telling a lie. And you can't tell lies and be aligned with God. So let's bring it all the way home. Think about it. You cannot fully receive love that you don't believe you deserve. And you can't believe you deserve it if you're hiding it. That's the loop. That's the trap. And the only way out is through recognizing and making a commitment to change it, to being yourself. I have something I say all the time, especially when these people, I'm like online dating and such, and I'll talk to these people on the phone and they're almost apologetic for who they are. Or, hey, just so you know, I'm kind of like this. There's so much apologizing for who people are. And I always say this. I say, boo, you got to vibe your vibe if you want to find your tribe. You must be unapologetically who you are, or you're never going to find your homies that are weird like you. When you stop performing for other people, something actually remarkable can happen. You, you free up an enormous amount of energy that has been tied up in maintenance, maintaining the persona, managing the perception, keeping the performance going. And that energy gets to move now towards love, towards creativity, towards actual connection. I do think that authenticity is one of my superpowers. And I don't know if it's true, but I will tell you, I have more energy and I get a lot more done, not than anybody ever, but I think more than anybody I know, honestly. And it might just be because I have all of that non-performance freed up, all of that energy towards maintaining some persona people might or might not like, or maintaining a persona people will definitely like better than the one I am. I I put energy into creativity. I make paintings, I make podcasts, I create communities, I create content for all of you. I design homes, I hang out with friends, I travel. Like I have more energy than most people. So I can tell you this really works. This energy gets to move now towards love, towards creativity, towards actual connection with God. And another thing I want to leave you with is that there's this concept of the God-shaped hole. It's this longing that nothing seems to fill that so many traditions speak of. And sometimes we call it this hole that we need to fill, and we fill it with food, drugs, sex, external validation, social media, overperformance at work, ad infinitum. But what if this God-shaped hole isn't God-shaped, but it's you-shaped? Oh, a space that has been waiting for you to stop auditioning and just arrive and just to be. And only you can fill it. Not a better version of you, not a more acceptable version of you. You, weird you, vibing your vibe so you can find your tribe. Being fully yourself is an act of trust that the universe made you on purpose. You're not an accident. And you're not somebody else. Your specific frequency is not a mistake. It's an utter delight. That the weird parts, the contradictory parts, and then the parts that don't fit neatly into any category, those are all intention. Everything about you was made on purpose. Everything. Not the edited version, because you made that. God didn't make that. Not the one that got sanded down and all the edges smoothed off to make other people more comfortable. That person might not be able to sing the song that you can. The strange, specific, unrepeatable you that showed up in this life with the exact combinations of gifts and wounds and flaws and graces and quirks and questions and rant. Universal love, God source, alignment cannot meet you if you're wearing a mask. It can only meet you who you actually are. Your weird is not standing between you and love. Your weird is the way. Let's ground this in a meditation, weirdos. Put your feet on the ground if you can to ground yourself. We're really going to be doing some grounding work. So if you're driving or you're on a treadmill, perhaps later you can do this meditation, because something that's really powerful while you breathe and you hold at the top and then you exhale deeply. Something that's really wonderful to know and to practice while you breathe is grounding in your authenticity. And so what we're going to do with our mind's eyes, we're going to imagine actual thick, viney roots coming out through our feet and through our bum, through the floor, through the crust of the planet, down to the core of the universe. And the more and deeper it goes, the thicker and thicker these roots get. And it's starting to feel very anchored, and it's starting to feel very powerful. And imagine the core of the earth is the real you. The bossy you, the quirky you, the one who asks too many questions, the one who's always rushing, the one who's always sleepy, the real you that you try to hide. And your roots are going to reach down there and just connect. And you're going to connect with that true core of who you are, not the person you think people want you to be. And in that, there is so much power. You feel that authentic self from the core of the planet shooting up through those vines, connecting to you while you breathe, And you feel that filling you up immensely with assuredness that every flaw and grace is God-given, and therefore they're all graces. They're all your pathways to alignment, enlightenment, true love with yourself and with the people around you and with universal source. This is you, the weird you, the wacky you, the silly you. The knows too much, knows too little. It's exactly who you're supposed to be. While you breathe, you think to yourself that maybe the world could handle the authentic you. While you breathe, you think to yourself, maybe you can handle the authentic you. While you breathe, you realize that's where it starts. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. Is authentically who you are is your direct path to God, to this empowerment that you're feeling right now coming out of the core of the earth. Just giving you so much power, so much spaciousness, so much peace. It feels expansive. The shoulders fold back. The spine straightens. It feels really good to love who you are, for who you are. And then you realize as you breathe that this is how God loves you. God loves everything about you. The universe made you perfect, and there's no part of you that doesn't deserve love, and this feels so good. And as you breathe, you can feel white light coming from the core of the earth straight up your roots into your spine, all the way out of the top of your head. And as you breathe, it expands, and that white light just gets bigger and bigger as it takes up the entire cavity of your body, your torso, your neck, your head, shoots up to sky. And as you breathe, you realize this is the oneness. This is God's love. And it starts with self-love. This is the alignment that's always available to you. I'm going to let you stay here for a while. I'll see you next Sunday.